to talk about this morning is what I'll call reinventing service delivery. So let me take you through what I see as the issue. The issue is about trying to service clients more effectively and to make some changes potentially in the way that we do business. The idea is completely taken from an article that I read in the December 2012 edition of Harvard Business Review. It's called 4 Ways to Reinvent Service Delivery. So this is not my idea, but I wanted to try and apply some of the concepts that I'd read to financial planning, but also then see where this goes. So I'm just going to take you through it very quickly and see if this stimulates any thinking. And again, would love to hear comments, feedback from the global community on this. Are people doing any of these things? Have run with any of these ideas consciously or unconsciously, and see where we can take some of this stuff. So by all means, and I'd strongly suggest this, if you're interested in any of this, go and actually look up the article online, 4 Ways to Reinvent Service Delivery, Harvard Business Review. You'll find it easily enough, and it'll give you the full model in there. I'm going to give you a very short version today. So let's look at the example they use in the article about healthcare. These were cardiology patients at a major hospital, and traditionally patients were allotted 30 minutes of time with a doctor one-to-one after they'd gone through open heart surgery or something like that. They formed a new group they called Club Red, and for this the client actually gets the choice of working one-to-one with a practitioner in the traditional way, or they can attend a 90-minute appointment with up to 11 other patients who've been through exactly the same surgery and discuss their treatment. So interestingly, this is what happens in the shared appointment. Patients receive individual advice, but they also get prescriptions, any tests that they require, the usual sort of stuff. But they get to discuss progress, challenges, and future treatment options with the doctor, but in front of the other participants. Now, what went through my mind when I read this is that discussing your personal health issues, I guess, is about as personal as it gets. Now, you could argue that that's even more personal than talking about one's financial issues, although I could also see the case that maybe money's even more sensitive than some of that. But I think you'd agree that sort of conversation is right up there in terms of people sharing pretty personal stuff. So here's a few things that came out of it. So the consultation here is confidential among the group, but it's not private. So it's a group experience. This was a huge change in the healthcare industry where personal service and privacy were just considered untouchable, completely sacrosanct. All right, that this is not how we do things here. Okay, so the shared appointments improve productivity, obviously. In 90 minutes, the doctor can see 10 to 12 patients, whereas in the one-to-one model, they could see 3 to 5. So you can imagine there is a huge win for the hospital and the service provider. That's fairly straightforward. But interestingly, the patients preferred this. This gets higher satisfaction scores of 98% amongst the attendees. Now, why is that the case? There was a few reasons. There was much shorter waits for appointments, so people didn't have to wait, weeks or months or whatever to get in and see a doctor. They can drop in to whatever is the next group. There's no sort of attachment to I have to be with the same group of people every time. They learn by listening to what the doctor shares with the other patients. Now, I know with my father-in-law, for example, he's I'm going to use the word intimidated when he goes to a healthcare professional. He doesn't sit there and ask all the questions that a person might ask, and I suspect some people come to see advisors and feel much the same way. I know for a fact they feel the same way about their financial issues. So in the group setting, the fact that other people ask the questions that they didn't think of or were too scared to ask, I could see, like in the healthcare example, could provide real benefits for people. So as a result, the people that attend this group medical appointment become more knowledgeable about their condition and their treatment options and all sorts of stuff. And the patients rarely speak to each other. There are groups that they can go and join outside of that appointment, but in that meeting, the doctor talks to them one-to-one and people just listen in. But funnily enough, their satisfaction levels go through the roof. Counterintuitively, this Club Red group members develop a stronger connection with the doctor, and apparently one of the reasons for that is they get to observe the doctor's empathetic and high quality interactions with the other people, and their faith and trust in the doctor is higher than if they attend a one-to-one meeting. And the health outcomes from this are measurably better as well. For example, obese patients get better weight reduction outcomes through the group method than they do in the one-to-one method. So, what's the model around all this? So some of the thinking behind it, and I'm not going to go through the model in detail. If you want to look at that, please go and read the article. But innovations that redefine service delivery apparently are quite rare. Okay, so because service redefinition requires a deep understanding of how to meet clients' needs. Now, again, as our profession matures, I know leading edge practices do have that deep understanding of what clients want, but I see across the industry, particularly in the UK, and I can't speak with authority for other markets, but your mass market advisors, maybe they're not quite yet at that level where they've got that deeper understanding, but I do see it emerging as firms start to specialise and get better. Because redefinition of service delivery isn't generally driven by disruptive technologies, which force people to have to confront their basic assumptions about their industry or their role, businesses struggle to overcome this mentality of this is not how we do it here. We're not forced to address that issue very often, or this issue of our clients are not expecting that from us. We're under no real pressure necessarily to do that. Now, who knows? Technological innovation and disruption may well force that on our profession. That may well be here or may well be coming shortly. But generally in service industries, we don't face those same changes that a major change in technology might have changed the software industry or the music industry as it's done in the past. But these service delivery innovations can create huge value for the businesses and their customers if they're done well. So how do you challenge the basic assumptions that you might be running in your business? There's 4 dimensions that get considered in this article. The first is the structure of the interaction, and I'll talk about this in a second. The second is what they call the service boundary. The third is the allocation of service tasks. And then the fourth is the delivery location. These are the 4 aspects that we could start to pick apart if we want to challenge our thinking and change the way that we do things. So let's look at the structure of the interaction. This can be configured in one of 4 ways. We can have one provider with one client, which to be honest in financial planning has sort of been the way we've done it. We could have one provider with multiple clients. That's sort of the example we just talked about in the healthcare industry. And again, I wonder whether there's opportunity to do that in our profession. You could have multiple providers with one client. And there's another example in the article of a migraine clinic in Germany where 3 different consultants meet at the first appointment with one client. And so it's like a group provision, an individual provision but by multiple providers for diagnosis, but ongoing treatment is then done on a one-to-one basis. They've adopted that approach. And then lastly, we could have multiple providers with multiple clients. The right structure obviously depends on whether the value for clients increases or decreases when the experience or the information from the interaction is shared with other people. That's the thing that we're trying to get to the bottom of. So, how could we apply this to financial planning? Now, forgive me, some of these applications I'm going to go through I think are just fairly obvious thinking, but hopefully they spark other thinking in yourself or people viewing this video. So, what could we do? Could we provide group access to financial planning advice for some clients? And I'm thinking here that a lot of firms, particularly in the UK, but I'm sure this is similar around the world, are struggling with how do we provide decent quality advice to more mass market customers. And one way may be to do group annual reviews like the doctors do with the cardiology patients. Could we pick a group of 12 clients that have got similar-ish issues? They might be more straightforward or they might be similar in age or financial concerns that they face. Could we get them in and offer a much cheaper but leveraged service for the businesses? And that may be an option. I'm thinking here potentially younger accumulation clients or people of more modest financial means. There might even be an option out of that to go and then buy some time or some advice on a separate basis if something very specific and bespoke needs to be addressed. But I could see some value in that. Could we do joined up annual review meetings between planner, accountant, lawyers, business coaches? And again, I know some firms are already doing that sort of thing. but how formalised is it, and could we be taking that idea even further? Group joined up review meetings where we not only have a team of advisors with one client, what if we had multiple teams of advisors and multiple clients? On the basis that no matter who you are in whatever profession, you don't know all the answers to everything. What if we were to get larger groups and larger teams together and to see what comes out of some of those discussions or those interactions? I think that could be interesting. Okay, and then look, the last one is what about group diagnosis and education sessions? And I'm thinking that this is maybe a step up from a mere information seminar that I know people run already in the profession. But what about if we got groups of people in who were facing common financial issues, we charged for it, we gave them education and specific advice around how to think about the issues, how to deal with the issues. We gave them models, recommended approaches that would help them solve the issues that they face. And people could either then have a choice of going and doing a do-it-yourself implementation of some of that after receiving some of that generic advice, or they could opt in for an assisted implementation for some sort of extra cost. They could also then subscribe to group check-ins throughout the year, again like the cardiology model, where there might be one of these run every month and people can drop in whenever they fancy that they need some more information. Again, I just think it might provide a new way of providing service to groups of people that in the past we haven't been able to service effectively, or to provide an alternative model that actually could deliver more value to these people if we believe that the group shared experience has actually got some value. The second area to consider then is the service boundaries. So a couple of questions to think about under this. Does a segment of your clients use a similar set of complementary services? And if so, there may well be a case for integration. And again, I'll talk about some obvious examples in a minute. Secondly, do problems with complementary services affect client outcomes? The fact that clients use similar complementary services in and of itself isn't enough to justify bringing them all together. But if clients have trouble accessing or using those services, you might want to re-examine the service boundary. So I'm thinking here again of obvious examples like business clients require a financial planner, investment manager, accountant, lawyer, business coach, life coach. We could think of all the different things that they might access. Now, a lot of clients I know in my own experience, but talking to planners here as well, should be able to go and easily access, for example, legal advice on their estate planning and wills, lasting powers of attorney, that sort of stuff. The reality is that most clients, I think, again, can feel intimidated by some of those things, and often these issues don't get addressed. So we do a simple referral to another professional, expecting that this will all get resolved quickly and simply, and often that's not the case. So again, I wonder, does it open the possibility of providing a more joined up service across some of these things? So again, a few ideas about the application to financial planning. What about the integration of professional services? Now, I know this is not new, and I know lots of firms are doing it or will claim to be doing it, but joined up, I would challenge how well has this been done, even in larger professional firms like accountants who have internal financial planning services or legal services. How joined up in practice is some of this? I'm sure there are firms that are doing it really well, and I certainly know lots of others where I would suggest that that's not the case. Being in the same building or owning all that stuff internally, I don't think is necessarily the answer. I think we need to go deeper with some of the thinking around that. So how could we join this up? Could we be doing group diagnosis like the migraine clinic in Germany? A new client comes in, maybe a business client I can think of here who needs multiple services. Could we have the whole range of team involved in that first initial diagnostic meeting, rather than just they come and see the planner and then they refer them to the accountant and they might refer them to the lawyer and this sort of model, which, although it works okay, maybe we could start to challenge some of that stuff. And do we need to challenge remuneration models about how people would be paid if we were going to do that in a joined up way? You look at your average law firm, what you've got is a bunch of one-person businesses all under the same roof. The partners are often quite protective of their clients. They're worried that people will stuff up the transaction. And again, it doesn't always feel like a particularly joined up service. So I'm thinking something beyond that traditional model. The third area is allocation of service tasks. So do employees' expertise match the tasks that they're actually providing? So there's a couple of things here. Professionals often complain about the time and mental space they have to give to routine activities, and this happens in financial planning all the time. The advisor taking notes or filling out fact finds and whatever, and we know that there are approaches with using power planners and administrators to start to separate some of that. There was a great example in the article about an eye hospital in India where surgeons only perform 30% of the operation, and their standards and outcomes are as good or better than any Western institution. But they've broken down who does what, and the surgeons only focus on the bits that they're really good at. Again, I know not anything particularly new in that, but how we're implementing and executing this in businesses could be interesting. The second question to ask around the allocation of tasks is what tacit social assumptions are influencing these assignments. Where are we a bit myopic to things? And again, the one-to-one interaction model is a great one. It's just assumed, I think, in our profession that that's how we need to be interacting with people. So how could we apply that to financial planning? There was a few ideas, obviously better use of paraplanners, administrators, all that obvious stuff, and I've got a few questions here on the slide about what are you doing in that space. But could we break the service delivery down even further perhaps? And a colleague of mine, a financial planner here in the UK, has raised this issue with me in the past. What if we had specialists who were out there finding the business, doing the relationship development? Client comes in and then we have a first meeting specialist, or we had a team like we talked about earlier that did that first meeting, and that may not be the business development person. What about, so the diagnostic team has a look at the issue. People collecting the data and doing the analysis, again, might be two separate roles. These might be specialists within your firm. Presenting the recommendations to people, there might be someone who's expert at that. Now, I know in a small planning firm, at the moment, the advisor fills a lot of these hats, and occasionally we drag in a paraplanner or administrator. But what if we were to break this down further? Implementation, liaising with the other professional advisors to make sure that stuff's happening on a regular basis and being coordinated. Relationship management once they become a client. And again, I know some firms will have a relationship management lead, but starting to think, could we be breaking down the parts of the process so that people can work on the bits that truly they love and are good at? Then the last aspect to consider is delivery location. So does the location limit clients' access or success in achieving a great outcome from provision of our service? The answer to this question establishes whether there's actually an innovation opportunity when we think about the location that we provide our advice. And secondly, have communication and information needs changed with the client? And the best service location obviously is one that provides the service provider and the customer the information and the communication style or communication needs effectively to both people. Now, I've certainly been a proponent of advisors are best seeing clients in their office where everything's at their fingertips, and I think there are strong arguments for doing that for a range of reasons. But obviously with changes in technology, clients being attracted, I guess, to different firms in different locations, maybe there are opportunities to review that. Maybe there are opportunities to review what locations we use at different stages in the process. And it may still be that people need to come in to see you or drop in to get that initial diagnosis and that flavour for your business. But once they've become clients, there's all sorts of options that we can employ there. And so I think there's something that we could think about in terms of delivery and location. So, how do we apply that? Obviously, use of technology and those sorts of things, and there'll be stacks of people out there, I'm sure, who are doing innovative stuff with technology already. I would love to hear how you've addressed some of these issues in your own business, but I just think that provides real opportunity. The example in the article was these special video conferencing booths that doctors use so they can take elderly or frail patients to a location that's in their local community. They can go with their GP. In the booth there's blood pressure testing facilities and all sorts of stuff, and they can liaise with a consultant who might be based in Los Angeles or another part of the world, a different country to them, and the GP can speak to the specialist wherever they're based in the world. The specialist can be getting live feeds of information, the basic information that they require, and all of a sudden we've saved massive transport, hassle and cost for frail or elderly patients, and this sort of stuff is changing delivery of medical services. Again, could we be doing the same thing? Okay, so action points to come out of this. Have you applied any of these ideas consciously or unconsciously in your business? If you have, we'd love to get some feedback, love to get some comments. Submit your own video to us if you like about what you've done. Let's share this information and see if we can drive some innovation across the profession. Has the presentation for you sparked any new ideas for you or your business? We'd love to hear those as well. Do you know anyone else that you feel might be interested in becoming part of our innovation community or like this information? Please feel free to share it. That's what we're looking for. And if you've got any other innovative ideas that you would like to submit into the group, again, that we can distribute online around the world and start to try and create some engagement for all that sort of stuff. Thanks for your time.